could it be that our people, African American Black people, because we're consumers and we are more than 80. I don't know what the data is. You might know the data. What the statistics are. Uh, you know, African American employees versus African American employers. Like what percentage of African Americans are workers essentially, or because if the majority of the vast majority, if the overwhelming majority of African Americans are employees and employee minded,
Mm-hmm.
then your whole view of capitalism is not even really in line with um, how this thing works. You're viewing capitalism from the standpoint of a participant, from an employee in someone in someone's scheme, not from the actual capitalist itself. So if
Right,
our
right, right.
whole community is that, if that's our default mindset, then that in itself could explain the disparity, because we're not even actually on the winning side of the economic process.
You're listening to the Bean Pie Chronicles podcast. So kick off your leather socks and unpin your head wrap. The Bean Pie Chronicles is now on the air.
We are
Excellent.
just having sort of like a casual conversation about, I would say, is a mindset that is prevalent among African Americans, African American Muslims, Muslim, non-Muslim altogether. There was a video that a brother shared with me, and I shared it with Riyaad. I'll reference it later on. And the video, the guy in the video, he was talking about a thing called like black capitalism. Like that's a terminology that I hear used a lot. People are typically saying how it's no such thing, or not that it's no such thing, that it doesn't work. Black capitalism is failing Black America. There's a sort of sense of and what they typically mean by that is, first of all, they'll identify somebody like Jay-Z or somebody like Beyonce, or just generally a rich Black person, and say, well, that individual's economic well-being does not lift all boats. So Black capitalism does not change the condition for the Black collective. And when I hear that, first of all, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me when I think of capitalism, because capitalism is not a collective endeavor. Unless it is, for me to say Oprah's wealth should impact Black people, the same way you say, well, Obama's election is going to change the condition. So the whole idea that some individual's achievement is somehow should assume, the assumption is that this individual achievement is going to somehow lift the condition of Black people. And so Black capitalism doesn't work. And that's how I usually hear that terminology used. And I'm like, it doesn't even make sense. Like, what is Black capitalism? There's no such thing as this, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? This capitalism is an economic system that, and half the people that they mention are not even capitalists. Like, I feel like people think of a capitalist almost just as a rich person in America. But 90% of African Americans, I don't know, you probably know what the percentage is, that employees versus employers, we're not really capitalists. So to say Black capitalism, as if Black people, by nature of being in America, a capitalist society, are actually practicing capitalism. That's not the case. The employee is not a capitalist. The employee is a worker and the owner of that business so if you work at Chick-fil-A, you're not a capitalist. The person that owns Chick-fil-A could be called a capitalist, right? So the idea of black capitalism doesn't work. That doesn't. So once a person starts to use that as a context or pretext for a conversation, you already lost me, because it's like you're talking about black people in a way that we don't actually exist. We don't actually exist as a collective. So why would an individual's economic well-being be seen as a precursor for like the betterment of the collective? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So capitalism, I think, can be best described as you have capitalists, and then you have people that participate in these capitalist endeavors. And that would be the workers, that would be the consumer. So everyone in America is a consumer. Well, even if you're a part of the social net, to where you may get food stamps, or you may get housing or something like that, you still participate in consumerism. And consumerism in the United States drives capitalism, or pretty much in the West drives capitalism. A capitalist is someone that endeavors to create a revenue stream, and they put their or someone else's money up, and they take a gamble. Most people aren't doing that. They're just participants of a in a capitalist scheme, or they're consumers of that capitalist scheme. And we're using scheme in the business term, not in the colloquial scamming type term.
Right.
So I come up with the idea. I want to make bean pies. I buy a building. I buy the equipment to go in, and I buy the supplies, and then I start churning out bean pies. And I can fail. I can lose my shirt. I could have mortgaged my house in order to come up with that money. But that's the scheme, is that I want to make bean pies. I'm going to make bean pies. They're going to cost me $1, and I'm going to sell them for $2.50. So there's a risk reward there. That's a capitalist. The employee, the person who spends time educating themselves, the social safety net person that gets food stamps and all that type of stuff, they're not capitalists. They're just participants in capitalist schemes. So this idea that black capitalism doesn't work means that there's no black capitalists.
Right.
And that's simply not true.
Well, the way that is typically used when they're saying the examples to say why it doesn't work is that they'll usually pick up. It could be somebody like 50 Cent or Jay-Z or some rich entertainer,
right?
And they say, well, that's an example of black capitalism, and so
yeah. So I think, and we were kind of having this conversation before we started recording. The way people describe black, in quotations, capitalism failing is from the perspective of they're looking for a daddy. So 50 Cent, did what he did because we're using that as an example. He was, people liked it. He made a product. That first album, people bought into it. He honed his image, whatever. He used his lyricism, his creative ability. People liked the product that he created, and he sold that product. It was consumed, and so he generated revenue. Within generating that revenue, he had G Unit, he had other managers and marketing people, tour people, people that worked at venues and all this type of stuff. They participated in his scheme, and they worked for a certain amount of money. So 50% is in that respect. And if you move on to his current endeavors, the TV shows, the movies, all that type of stuff, the product that he put out into the world and ultimately sold generates revenue. He takes a large portion of that revenue. Why? because it's his risk reward.
Now, you're talking about the second iteration of 50 Cent. The first iteration where he's signed to a label,
Right.
he's an employee at that point.
He's an employee, but what he did was he was making music prior to that. So he was making music and generating revenue through music, as well as, his well-documented street hustle. So that's how he participated in capitalism prior to. Someone came to him with a deal and said, hey, don't struggle so much. Here's a bunch of money. So at that point, Dr. Dre, or was it Eminem?
Eminem.
So at
Eminem
the point,
is the capitalist at that point when he signs him.
Right, because at that point, 50 Cent gave up his capitalism,
right,
and became
right,
a participant in Eminem's
scheme.
So Eminem took his scheme on a bigger level to Dr. Dre, and Dr. Dre bought them both out, and so now they both became participants of Dr. Dre's scheme.
Right.
Dr. Dre's scheme was sold to Interscope Records, and Interscope Records.
Right.
So that's the way it works. But yes.
But so we're going to clarify. Just because you see, let's say, a rapper or a basketball player or some employee, a well-paid employee, that doesn't make them a capitalist.
It doesn't necessarily make them a capitalist in what we view them as. So even if you take 50 Cent, for instance, he's a capitalist because he comes up with storylines, with raps, all that type of stuff, and he takes that and he sells it. Now he pre-sold future ideas to whatever television production company and whatever record label. So what they did was it's like futures trading. So I'm going to buy it at this price and hope in the future that this increase.
Right.
So that's basically how even though he's selling, he's still participating in capitalism, but then the capitalism grows because it becomes a part of a bigger scheme.
Right.
So they're still participating in capitalism. Who's not participating in capitalism is the A&R. They're not a capitalist. The secretary, they're not a capitalist. The road manager, they're not a capitalist. They're participating in someone else's capitalistic scheme.
Right.
So when we hear, for instance, that Black capitalism failed, we're discounting every beauty salon, every barbershop, every cosmic cookie, every Abu's Kitchen, every Black attorney that has their own office. So we're discounting all of those people that are providing, it may be 1 or 2 or 3 jobs, but then that 1 or 2 or 3 jobs is supporting 20 other Black people.
Right.
So when people say that, first of all, they don't have a grasp and an understanding of the language and the use of the language and how capitalism works.
Right.
And they're doing it from the perspective of someone that's begging, someone that has a hand out, their hands are like cups, and like Jay-Z made a bunch of money. Why can't he give me some?
Right.
And the beautiful thing about capitalism is you can have whatever inspirational idea you want, but if the consumer doesn't want it, it doesn't matter. You failed at that capitalistic venture.
Right.
So a free market economy means that you are free to try to have a capitalistic scheme, but the consumer is free to not support your scheme. And it could be that you have a superior product. It could be that, that you sound better. It could be that you have better production quality. Like, none of that matters because the consumer determines what they want. Now, some people will argue that that we get programmed to like certain things, but that comes at a certain level of success. So you take Yeezys, for instance.
Right.
I personally never liked Yeezys, any of them.
Right.
But prior to Yeezy, people would have been like, man, can't nobody sell more shoes than Jordan Nikes.
Right.
You know what I mean? Kanye believed in himself, threw tantrums, said that, he's the new Yves Saint Laurent. He's the house of Versace and all that. All y'all need to do is listen to me, give me this, give me that. Now I guarantee you I can pull the people in. And he wasn't lying.
Right.
So, but he had to put his own money up. Other companies had to put their money up. Those are capitalists. The person in the factory is not participating. He's not a capitalist. He's just participating in someone's scheme, and he's getting paid an hourly wage. So salary and hourly wage people, they don't put their money up in order to take a chance on possibly losing that money. And this is something that these people, when they talk about that type of stuff, these are people that don't know what it's like to gamble their money in that way.
Right.
So they view capitalism as this just this mean thing, or this exoteric force that is devoid of humanity, when only humans risk their money to get a reward.
Right.
So a lot of times when I hear that, it's like you're spitting in my face, because there's many times that I want to buy something personal, something that's going to, and I have the money, but there's a $150, $200, $300, $400,000 piece of equipment that I also need to purchase. And if I spend that money, there's an opportunity that I won't make enough money to cover that purchase. So when you tell me capitalism doesn't work and I recoup my investment, you're a complete idiot.
Right.
Because I made a product that was good enough in order for me to recoup the investment. I risked the money. I bought this, like the last big huge purchase that I did was that $900,000 CO2 extraction equipment. That's a cash purchase.
Right.
And that's just because of my industry. Most of the time you can put up 20-30% of the cost of something, and then you can get the company, get a leasing company to come buy it, and then you just lease it back, keep it on an evergreen lease or something. But in my industry, there is no leasing, or there is no company that's going to come in and buy it and let you lease it back. You have to purchase everything. So when someone tells me that capitalism doesn't work and I got to spend $900,000 out my pocket, and I'm just hoping that the products that I made and the way that I position them and present them to the public, I have to be able to get them to buy in, so they spend their money, because they're consumers. Consumerism drives a capitalist. So I have to hope and be smart enough in order to put a product in front of them that it gets me my money back. So to tell me that it doesn't work when I recoup my money, you're just like, you have no idea of the language that you're using. So it's really easy to discount that. So you take, for instance, someone like Jay-Z, who's been very successful in several industries, and not only been successful in several industries, has brought the net worth of a lot of Black people, because we're Black, has brought the net worth of a lot of Black people above what's considered to be, or what's considered to be, even if it's not the top 1%, which, more than likely it probably is, but at least the top 5% of wealth earners or revenue generators within the United States. How does capitalism not work? And how is he not supporting Black people? I mean, just offhand, I can't think of a white or a Mexican person that Rockefeller or Jay-Z signed. Everyone they signed was Black people. Now you might have a white person here, there, in effect, or he might have bought a white company and then slowly integrated some Black faces or whatever. What is supposed to happen? So if I get $1 billion, are you telling me that capitalism is that I have to set aside $500 million for non-participants in capitalism? Like, does that mean that capitalism will work then if I'm just giving money away, or if I send all Black folks, all 40 million of us, a $40 check? You know, is that how capitalism works?
Well, I think, it's weird because as a group of people, you see the statistics. You know, I'm not a big data guy, because I believe numbers, people say men lie, women lie, numbers don't lie. That's not true. Numbers can be manipulated to tell whatever narrative individuals want to tell. But, the data says that there's a giant discrepancy between the wealth of white families and black families. What they call that, the wealth disparity. And a lot of people have blamed when looking for the causation. So that's what I'm always like, okay, so that data is there, but what the data is not giving is the causation. So the causation is for these people is black capitalism. Now I listen to Dr. Claude Anderson, and there's this another brother from Tone Talks. There's a brother that's Tone Talks. They talk about black capitalism in the sense that that capitalism itself is not what some people might think it is. The result of individual endeavors. They're talking about capitalism on a grand scale, how it involves a marriage almost between government policies and industry. So they're saying,
But it has to, because we don't have laissez-faire capitalism. So there has to be a marriage for checks and balances.
okay.
So, and when you have government, so capitalism truly is laissez-faire. The market dictates everything. The government has nothing to do with anything. So if I can grow myself to be a monopoly and not create competition for myself, then that's what it is. If I go to enough people with a big enough offer, I can buy your company. So there's no antitrust laws. That's truly what capitalism is. We don't have anything close to that in the United States. So again, people really don't they view this as if we as United States citizens don't allow politicians to pass laws that allow lobbyists. So the same way that I can go lobby for black people, a company can put money into a fund and go lobby for what they feel is going to be most beneficial for their shareholders. Because the thing people have to understand, we have this idea about America. America is a corporation, and a corporation needs to generate revenue. So a business, even though legally it's its own entity, the soul of the business is the shareholders. So how bad a company, and we always let the shareholders off the hook, and we think about the highest employee, the CEO of a company, as the one that is the evil guy, but it's not. It's the shareholders. So look at your 401k. When was the last time that you went to a shareholders meeting on what's in your portfolio and said, I protest? I protest the fact that, that your company isn't a good steward of Native American land in Montana. I protest the fact that, that this finance company in my portfolio is offering predatory lending to the most vulnerable people. We don't do that.
Right.
So again, America doesn't do that because they're not capitalists. They're participants in someone's scheme, or they're consumers. So a consumer only wants give. And so they view everything from that perspective. They don't view it from the perspective of the ideation to putting the package together and then having to sell that package and either go into your bank account or go into someone else's bank account, convince somebody to put money. Someone is taking a risk. All consumers do is show up and they're like, what do I get? They never take the risk. they never know what it's like to take a huge financial hit. So, for instance, we were talking earlier about Silicon Valley Bank.
Right.
It's a whole lot of, they don't know whether or not they're going to be able to pay them bills, pay them employees Friday.
Right.
And a lot of people put money into these companies and that they put into Silicon Valley Bank. All those investors took a risk. You know who didn't take a risk? The secretary and the people that's showing up that's complaining about capitalism.
Right.
You understand why they complain about capitalism? Because they just want to consume more. They don't want to put anything that's going to add productive to society from the standpoint of adding more jobs, creating more wealth for the country.
They show up when the job is created.
They show up when the job is created and then complain that the job's not perfect when they show up.
So here's a question. So when we talk about correlation, and that's what I don't get from the people that's running off at the data over how the black family is such behind the wealth disparity. That's a big thing right now with the wealth disparity. How do you address that? And it seems like the common answer from the Democrats and liberals is sort of like a wealth redistribution program. Like, okay, you guys were allowed to accumulate all the money. Let's put all the money in the bucket and shake it and just let it fall where it needs to fall. And let's somehow that seems as fair. That's not fair. But could it be that our people, African American black people, because we're consumers and we are more than 80. I don't know what the data is. You might know the data. The statistics are African American employees versus African American employers. Like what percentage of African Americans are workers essentially, or because if the vast majority, if the overwhelming majority of African Americans are employees and employee minded, then your whole view of capitalism is not even really in line with how this thing works. You're viewing capitalism from the standpoint of a participant, from an employee in someone in someone's scheme, not from the actual capitalist itself. So if our whole community if that's our default mindset, then that in itself could explain this disparity, because we're not even actually on the winning side of the economic process.
Yeah. So we've been. Our issue isn't capitalism. Our issue when it comes to capitalism and being a capitalist is that we've been socialized and politicized out of being capitalists. So most black people are Democrats, and the Democratic Party is, when it comes to black people, we are terrible when it comes to being capitalist and coming up with schemes. For instance, I'll give you one, and every time I say this to someone black, they just have this dumbfounded look on their face. How many black people are there in the United States? Roughly 48 million. We'll just put it at roughly 48 million, 13% of the population. There's about 220 million white people in the United States. So, first of all, why are we making so many black products? Why don't we make products for white people to consume? Why is it that we have to be the first black grocery store on MLK Boulevard in the hood? Why can't we just get a group of people together and start buying up grocery stores, buying up, Whole Food type situations? Why can't we come up with Whole Foods? So this is what I'm talking about. Why does it have to be? Why is it that everything we do, I'm the black this and I'm making products for black people? Well, if you're a true capitalist, you're trying to cast a wide net. you know, and there's more white people in this society than are anyone, and I hate the term minority, but just to describe it, there's more than all minorities. If you take Mexicans and black people, that's roughly, what's that? Let's say 40, that's 100 million. And then if you add in everyone else, that might be another 10 million. So that's 110 million people, and there's 230 million, 204. I mean, there's 320 million people in the world. I mean, in the United States. So that's 190, 200 million white folks that just get turned off from the very beginning. You know, and then every initiative that we do is about, whether you call it wealth distribution or whether you just call it, you know, now, before I move forward, I believe in reparations. You know, I don't count on reparations. I think white society in America needs to pay Black American descendants of Black American slaves. Right. So whether you want to refer to it as ADOS, whether you want to refer to it as BAM, and not just Black American Muslims, but Black, you know, like Black American descendants, bad Black American descendants, all these acronym stuff really don't matter. But if you're Black and you're a descendant from American slaves, you deserve United States slaves, because I keep forgetting all the other places in the Caribbean stuff, that's America too. So if you're a descendant of American slaves, then America owes us. Okay? I don't think that debt can necessarily be counted. I know some people, you know, say, you know, $30 trillion, whatever. It's not, I mean, just all the rape and incest and all that alone.
Yeah, you can't.
We ain't gonna get on the economic stuff.
Yeah, you want to just make it all economic, then you're gonna come up with a number. But then there's certain things you can't repay.
Yeah. So that aside, when you're talking about packaging something and trying to sell it to white people, first of all, that is wealth distribution. Doesn't matter whether it's deserved or not. It's wealth distribution. So even the way that we package reparations is just dumb. It's dumb. It's childish. It's it's not sophisticated. The way a reparations package should be packaged, even just the use of the word reparations, when you're bringing this to them, we're in a capitalist society. How is this going to make money for America? You know, that's the thing. There's a wealth gap. We were left out of certain issues, and over the next 50 years, we can generate $200 trillion for the United States if we have access to $50 trillion now over the next 50 years. You know, the Make America Great for All fund.
So
you know,
so you're saying that, again, leaning in on the capitalist nature of the society, rather than so your proposal is a capitalist proposal, like invest here, and then we're gonna increase this, you know, reparations, and we're gonna increase this money that was invested 2 or 3 times, and you know, over the next certain amount of years, 2 or 3 decades, as opposed to it being proposed as like some kind of social services, like almost like a giant welfare check. And it's like, okay, how is this money? Well, the money's going to come back because I'm going to buy a tractor trailer worth of Jordans. You know, I'm going to buy.
I mean, that could be one way to look at it, but the other way to look at it would be that you know, 20% of this fund is going to send qualified Black males and females to technical school, and we're going to focus on things such as AI, robotics, space travel, you know, mining the moon, that type of thing. 20% of this will go towards banking that will spur the middle class business creation. So, and then, you know, because the way that a consumer looks at it is, give me my check. Give me my check, nigga. Give me my check.
Right.
You know, and so at some point, there's within economics, there's the law of diminishing returns. So at what point does this investment become such a bad investment that I'm just throwing money at it that I'm never going to get?
Right.
So you got 200 million white people that benefited from slavery but didn't actively enslave no one. Now, they may help prop up a racist system, but they didn't enslave anyone. And you're telling them, man, give me $100 trillion. You owe me. Like, that's just, you know, it's such just a non-sophisticated, you know, maybe if we were in a socialist country, maybe this was Cuba. Maybe if this was, I don't know, any other socialist country, China, you know, maybe that socialist type mentality or that argument may be something that might get some traction. But that's not, America is a capitalist system. So the government and everything is in place to support being a capitalist. Capitalists have a higher standard of life. They live longer, and capitalists have a better they have a better relationship with law enforcement. They have a better relationship with local governments, and they have more say.
So it seems like it's safe to say that part of the wealth discrepancies is that as a collective, we don't really even know the true nature of the economic system we're in.
We've been socialized to beg. Everything we do is ask. Everything Black people do as a collective, with our politics, with our money, we ask. I was just reading, even though I haven't watched the movie, I'll never watch it because I think it's a travesty. And I like the director who directed the movie, and I like Viola Davis, Blythewood, that did Love and Basketball. She did that movie. She directed the movie The Woman King, and I don't even want to get into what a travesty and how disrespectful that movie is. But she was just talking about how bad it is that the Academy Award they didn't get a nomination. Why the fuck do you care? Stop begging. You got funding. You made a movie. The movie made a boatload of money, and you got an opportunity to go make another movie because people know that you can direct a good movie. You know, so this we're constantly seeking recognition and validation as opposed to seeking what's in your pocket. I want what's in your pocket to benefit me. I want to put something in front of you that you're going to consume. So we don't live our lives that way. We live our lives because we're such social net babies, because we've been socialized to beg. We've been politicized to beg and ask. So that's what we do. Can you please give me some? As opposed to, oh, I like that. I'm sorry, I'm looking at my son's water gun. Oh, that's a nice water gun. See what I'm saying? Like the guy that made the Super Soaker, the black guy that got rich off that made the Super Soaker, wasn't thinking about, let me be the first black guy on the corner with a water gun. He was like, hey, kids like this. See what I'm saying? Like that mentality, just that mentality shift is a whole different thing. I'm not looking for nobody to give me something. I'm looking for someone to invest and believe in the product that I'm giving someone. And so I have a track record of having some decently placed products. So when I go before people, I have a better opportunity to sell, to bring in more money, to be able to hire more black people, to be able to work with more people outside of my community and bring that money back into my community. So this whole, I don't know, black people, we just beg and ask. That's all we do is just beg and ask without having a trade-off for the person that we're asking from.
So some person or someone might say, listen, and a lot of the Claude Anderson and like my man from Tone Talks, their point is that part of the point that they make is that the government responds to, you know, the white community when they need things, whether it's you know, articulated bluntly or dog whistles. You know,
Okay.
that's not a problem for white people to have. So there's like books written about when, you know, when affirmative action was white. You know what I'm saying? The government responds to their, just like the government props up certain industries, coal, farmers, whatever, because they're taking care of white people. And some people feel like, you know, it's only fair that black people should be able to rely on the government handouts or the government to take care of their needs and their interests as well. You know?
Okay, so two things. Those are traditional industries that probably need to be propped up, or else that social safety, social net will be even further eroded. So there was a time that we used coal, and coal still generates a lot of our electricity, so we still need it. So even though coal doesn't make the money that it used to, because trains don't run on coal, cars don't, you know, all that type of stuff, but it still needs to be propped up because most electrical grids are ran by coal. So if that's the case, is it cheaper? I'm just saying, we're talking capitalism now. Is it cheaper to keep them employed, or is it cheaper to have this unemployed, uneducated labor in large swaths of West Virginia, North Carolina, places where it's already, you know, really not too much industry? Is it cheaper just to prop them companies up and then buy the coal from them, and then that coal runs? So, you know, but my issue becomes, again, that why aren't we, you know what? If you talk to, I'm just throwing this statistic out there. This isn't necessarily a real statistic, so I'm being very dramatic. If you talk to 99.99% of black people and you ask them, hey, what are the market trends for the next 25 years? What are they gonna tell you? They don't know.
Right.
They're gonna tell you some BS about some cryptocurrency that they saw on the TikTok.
Right.
But where are the market trends? What's happening over the next 25 to 30 years is gonna be big revenue generators. You know, so we're very Louis Vuitton, and by that I mean we're very the end thing now. We're not 50 years out. We're not 40 years out. And we invest for a flip. We don't invest for a 5-10 year huge return. So Tesla cost somebody a whole lot of money 15 years ago, whatever. But now Tesla is, you know, making a whole lot of money. So this is what I'm saying. So where are the black people that have this future forthright thinking, and they're selling that idea, and black people are investing and waiting 5 years for their return, waiting 10 years for their return, because this is what white people do. The best you're gonna get from a black person is, oh man, you know, here go $1,000. Hey, next week I need that 1,500 back. You know, that's how we think. See what I'm saying? Oh man, I could have used that 1,000 and flipped that, man. I could have made me another 1,000. I could have sold me some fish sandwiches on the corner.
Right.
You know, we're not thinking about outer space. We're not what's gonna be needed. What's the problem with the I don't know, with the shield that's, space travel is coming back and forth. How can we make space travel cheaper? How can we make communication from outer space faster? How can we get to what is needed to study Mars more? And all I'm saying is, even our educated people get social science degrees, and they end up being somebody's teacher, somebody's DHS worker, or working for the government.
So it seems like we have a community with a culture that's been conditioned to one
mainly through the church and the Democratic Party. Just because we're Muslim, this isn't me beating up on the church, but this is where we're learning. The Democratic Party disseminates this information mainly through the church.
I mean, you might say that masjid might be even more like I've gone to masjids my whole life. I don't know the Muslim and black Muslim masjids to be politically or economically pushing any agenda.
Yeah, absolutely not. But where do we come from? We came from the black church.
Right.
So that was socialized into us, and we didn't make that a part of it. And then when we learned Islam for people that were given dawah, not for people that established Islam new. So the lessons they were giving us were dawah lessons, not establishing a fair trade as one of the first pillars when you start a community in a new land. How do you support yourself? If you look at every other burgeoning Muslim community when Islam spread, the first and second thing they did was establish trade, establish revenue generation, because you can't do anything. You're subject. You're someone's slave if you can't support yourself financially. And so in America, even though we're Muslim, we're nothing but slaves, and we're bad slaves mentally because we're too scared to do anything. The Arabs got us too scared to think for ourselves, and the Democrats got us too scared to be capitalists. So we got a whole, I don't even count us as any type of viable anything. Like, at least the church does build churches and generate money, so, but I don't know, we're just so dysfunctional. Like, the black Muslim American community is so dysfunctional that we don't count in America. Like, we're not significant.
Even to go as far as like the church at least has some sense of real estate. They're involved in certain elements. Even from the music, they have gospel music shows and this, that, and the other. So they're involved in
all that type of stuff. Every time I watch I watch a movie all the time now, and then halfway through it, I'm like, oh man, this is a Christian movie. Right. I'm gonna keep on watching it.
Right.
What I'm saying?
So, but the African American Muslim community, for the most part, have a whole anti-American, sister the other day told me that Islam almost, and she said this is basic Islam. She said this is basic Islam, that Islam would not, does not support capitalism, like as though Islam was the antithesis to capitalism. And I'm like, well, capitalism is economics, so it has nothing to do with it. It doesn't. So this whole idea of like the exploitation of blah blah blah. There's a sort of I think in America you have these two dichotomies of capitalists, and then your opposite is socialists. And so there's the socialist critique of capitalism, the Marxist critique of capitalism, is sort of the adoptive standpoint of a lot of black people. We're the permanent proletariat. We take on the idea or the concept or the disposition of the proletariat because we're the default employee. We're
right.
owner.
And anything can be exploitative. You can exploit Islam.
Right.
It doesn't mean that Islam is wrong. It just means
Right.
that the people who are in power are exploiting Islam. You can exploit socialism. I mean,
Right.
look at Cubans. I guarantee you, Cubans will want a different. If they could talk without being put in prison or talk without going to jail, I
Right.
bet Cubans would be like, hey, this was a good idea, but the way that we've been exploited with socialism is something different. Marxism. You think Russians like Marxism?
Right.
Or Stalinism or all these other isms? You think
Right.
China, is looking at communism like, man, the idea and the implementation is two different things.
Right.
So when you hear people say that, it's to me, it's judging from the extreme. So you have Amazon and Tesla that make $1 trillion, that's valued at $1 trillion, whatever. Okay, fine. You don't count outliers when you're talking about the curve. You don't count the 90% of people that file an LLC, or you don't count the 5% of people that file an LLC and spend $100,000 and don't make a dime.
Right.
You don't necessarily count them within the bell curve. You don't count the 5% of people that are ultra successful like Walmart, Amazon, and all that kind of stuff. Because when you drive down the street in any area, most of the business you see is not going to be Amazon, Walmart, or Tesla.
Right.
It's Johnny's Garage. It's
Right.
Fatima's Hair Braid. It's Abu's Chicken Shack.
Right.
That's what you're seeing.
Right.
Now my issue becomes, if you have a problem with Amazon, Walmart, and all that, why are you going there instead of Abu's Chicken Shack?
Right.
So people that complain about exploitative capitalism are the consumers that feed the beast.
Right.
So you ain't shit. Stop complaining.
Right.
Stop complaining. Because while you're talking to me, you're still in Walmart. Even if you're like, oh, well, I grocery shop at Whole Foods and I, this and that. You're at Walmart when it's time to buy them school clothes and get them uniforms and stuff. Like, you're doing something at some multinational conglomerate that exploits the amount of money they make. They don't necessarily pay their employees well. You support that.
Right.
I continue to consume that. But at the same time, they continue to keep their prices kind of low. Like, literally, I saw some on Amazon yesterday, or the day before yesterday. My wife ordered it. It was cheaper than I've seen it anywhere else.
Right.
My wife ordered it, and it was to my house in 4 hours. So not only was it cheap, I didn't have to leave, and it got to it was delivered to my house in 4 hours. How do you compete? So my question is, if there was a demand, Jeff Bezos came up with the system, sold that system to people, people invested money, and now you're telling me that they can't exploit the system that they created? But as consumers, we don't have to use Amazon. I don't necessarily have a problem with it, but we don't have to use Amazon. So again, you feed your own exploitation, or we feed our own exploitation, because without consumers, they don't have the money to run. Without the political clout, they don't have the money to change laws. But we're the ones that keep electing these officials. We want slick, polished politicians. We don't want somebody, and that's one of the reasons why Trump was so, popular, because it don't matter whether he was dumb or not. You knew exactly what he was thinking and say. He said it.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah, I cheat on my taxes, but they ain't gonna change it, so I take advantage of it. Yeah, I do this. Yeah, I do that. Yeah, everything Trump said, no matter whether you like it or not, people who we should be trying to make product for appreciated his honesty and the fact that the Republican Party, and this is something that I don't think Black folks don't get this, because we're always begging. They don't get the fact that other people, regardless of how we feel like they owe us, other people don't want to pay us. So how do we get money out of them? We turn them into consumers.
Now you brought up a point about the black politicians, and they seem to be, especially the Democrats, because not a lot of black people vote Republican. So the majority of the sophisticated, savvy, slick snake oil salesmen, politicians are Democrats, the black is going to in the black world, and it seems to me that they are guilty of maintaining this status quo where they have these black people voting for them just because they can get up there, maybe say I'm the anti-Donald Trump, maybe use the emotion of the people like vote for me and I'll shit talk Donald Trump, or I'll stick it to the Ku Klux Klan or whatever ploy they're using. But they keep the people in this begging mindset. There's no initiatives to say we need to teach our black people capitalism. We need to teach them to stop consuming or to produce product or to get on the other side. So they seem to be willing to play their role as the intermediary between the powers that be, the economic elites, and the poor blacks. And they just keep this mindset like they're part of why our people feel like bitching and moaning is the solution.
So we kind of had this conversation before, and I think this is one that we're just gonna agree. I will give you or disagree on. I will give you a quick rebuttal. So to me, this is the same argument of if you walk outside and everyone has two arms and two legs and you got one arm and two legs. You may not exactly know why, but you know something's wrong with you. So this is the same thing. Black people choose their leaders. So that this idea that just because someone may get more FaceTime, social media, television, being interviewed, doesn't mean that we have to choose that person. And so that's my issue, is that black people are always trying to be a victim and then beg. I'm a victim, so please give me. I'm a victim, but we choose our leaders. We choose our leadership. So just because someone gets 200 hours of FaceTime a month doesn't mean we got to choose that person or their rhetoric. So what happens is the antithesis or the opposite of or the person that's the antithesis to who we normally choose is someone that says you got to be responsible for yourself. We don't want no parts of that.
Yeah,
which is why we hate the Republican Party so much.
Right, but that black politician that depends on the black vote, they know that they have to say these things like, they're justified. But the way we gotta look at it is they're trying to eat. If we stop a lot, if they stop pulling votes, then that well dries up. So my point again is the responsibility is still on us. We know they full of shit. We know that. We know when them slick politicians get up there and start, it's like when they get up there, we see it. It's like they got a watermelon in one hand, a piece of chicken in the other hand, and they shucking and jiving and grinning with a greasy face. Like we see it and we know it and we hear it. And we still like, man, we like that better than we like to be responsible for yourself. We like that. Like my thing is this, we know the Republican Party or that side. I'm not saying go be Republican. I'm just talking about how we view stuff. And the solution to what we do, we love to lie to ourselves. So here's a perfect example. If I'm sitting here dead ass broke, and I have one friend that is empathetic and they're like, oh man, you just had such a rough life, and ooh man, somebody should give you something, and you deserve for somebody to give you something. Okay, that's one friend. And then I have the other friend over here like, man, pull yourself up by the bootstraps.
Go get some. You ain't gonna get nothing sitting here whining about it. Go figure something out. Hit the streets. Do this. Do it. Like, to me, that's the person. I don't care how bad it hurts. That's the person that's the message that I need to hear. I don't need to hear this, oh, you can't do it on your own. You're gonna have to have somebody white to come help you. If you ain't got nobody white on your side, you just ain't gonna be able to make it. You just can't overcome unless somebody white ends up being your daddy or your mammy. You can't do it. You need I don't want to, and that's the difference between the Democratic and the Republican Party as far as rhetoric goes. Now, there's a large faction of the Republican Party is racist, and they say those things, pull yourself up by the bootstrap. Those have become like dog whistle type words. But I'm just saying, if you're looking at it from a capitalist standpoint, and you're trying to be a capitalist, and you're trying to create, and you're trying to generate business, I don't need somebody that's going to placate me into being a victim. I need somebody that's going to motivate me and drive me and tell me, you're responsible for your own success. If you don't get up and do something, ain't nothing gonna happen to you. You're gonna stay a victim. You're gonna stay broke. And guess what? I ain't paying for you.
What do you say to someone who says, listen, we've had history. You have Black Wall Street. You have Rosewood. You've had these, even Harlem and these different type of black enclaves that some, like Rosewood or whatever, just was straight up destroyed. By white people attacking these things. Economic attacks like gentrification could be seen as an attack on black wealth. There's people that will push back and say, listen, this system does a job. Black people are not just like this by nature. There's been examples made. Stay in your place, essentially.
So for every example that you can give me where white people, came in and destroyed, like the Rosewood situation or whatever, I can give you 1,000 examples of black people leaving their community and going to consume at Woolworths. Black people, I want to sit at Woolworths. Well, what about Mr. Charlie's, Glory Emporium, food, groceries, and clothes? You know what I'm saying? You just gonna leave Mr. Charlie so you can go sit and get milk and ice cream poured on you at Woolworths? Why? So this is what I'm saying. What did they destroy for us to want to go sit at Woolworths? That's that democratic lie that was told to us. That's that melting pot that we accepted and was told to us, and we should at this point. Well, we all know that was a lie, but but the side that pushes that lie also tells us, oh, it's okay that you're a failure. It ain't your fault. Mommy and daddy gonna take care of you. White liberal mommy and white liberal daddy, we gonna take care of you. And that's what we like. We don't like Mr. Man over here telling them, nigga, get yourself up. I ain't paying for shit. Get it out the dirt. So that's my issue, is that yes, there's been all these travesties that happened, but we still willingly gave up our capitalistic tendencies and our ability to produce for ourselves as well as produce products for other people. So you can't tell me in this day and age that the same level of racist exploitation would happen as it did, pre-social media, pre-technology, all of this. So yes, there were things that happened because it was isolated, because I could steal Mr. McCoy's engine and turn it into a Ford invention and mass make it. I could steal, and no one would hear about it for 40, 50, 60 years. I could take Roebuck's portion of his company when he was on vacation, and then come back and it's just Sears and you don't own nothing. So it's those type of things that just would happen, but it would happen on a much smaller and lesser scale. I'll give you a perfect example. Look at the 15 top billionaires, or the 15 highest earning billionaires in the black billionaires in the United States. And then tell me what products that they make that are black products. Jay-Z didn't become a billionaire off music. Jay-Z became a billionaire off alcohol. He got a deal with a premium alcohol house and sold a premium alcohol Douce that half the white folks that buy it just saw it was expensive, and so that's why they're buying it. They didn't know it was a nigga drink. See what I'm saying? Like, it's dumb. Sorry, man, I keep getting these. What's your boy's name? The richest billionaire in America. Vista Capital. I can't think of his name right now. He made a hedge fund. He made a investment company, made some great investments, and got billions of dollars under his control now.
What's that?
You know, and then, so if you take the top 15, maybe 2 or 3 of them started marketing geared towards black folks. The rest of them made consumable products for the majority of the like, it was nondescript. It was just, this is a great product. Do you want to buy it?
So at one point, if you were to say society was segregated, and then once society was integrated, it seems like the during segregation, when you couldn't go and consume, white products, you had to have a class of black capitalists to produce certain things, so that if you wanted shoes or you wanted, a car or whatever, you had to go to the black store, the black barbershop, the black restaurant. Once integration came into force, then people left those black establishments, went to go consume at white establishments, and then those black capitalists who were accustomed to creating black products maybe didn't make the transition. Maybe they didn't make the transition into, now we're gonna just make products for everybody. We make hair grease or something that only black people, whatever. Now those black people leave, and now who do I make hair grease for? Oh, I gotta shut down. But maybe you should have shifted and started making Head and Shoulders or something like that.
So it's twofold. It's a case of the mouse who moved my cheese, which is, I don't know how many of y'all know that story, but it's just or who moved my cheese, which is just, anyway, just forget the reference. But it's twofold. It's a case of not pivoting from the capitalist standpoint. Why? Because you're a victim. You've been taught a victim mentality, and you got to ask white liberal mommy and white liberal daddy, can you do it and what you should do, and wait on them to give you an answer, which the positive answer ain't never gonna come. And the worker left to go work for the white capitalists. So there's this great migration from the South up north to go be an employee. And then when they was up there, what happened to them? They went from employees to 100% consumers. Everybody had a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house with a Cadillac out front, working in the factory. Mommy stayed at home. The kids went to school. Daddy worked for 30, 40 years and then retired. And that was it. So what happened with the kids? What happened to entrepreneurialism? What happened to supporting each other? So now I can go to Woolworths. I don't even want to go to Mr. Charlie's Chicken Shack in Portland no more. I want to be seen in Woolworths. I want to be seen at Sears. I want to be seen at the, mall that they're building now. I don't want to live in Detroit now. I want to live out in, all these outskirts of Detroit and all this kind of stuff where the white folks live. I want the white folks to see me. I want the white folks to accept. And this is what black people do. So again, when you screaming that capitalism doesn't work, you're screaming that capitalism doesn't work from the perspective of someone that has never gambled your own money in a significant way, risked and that reward paid off, or risked, you lost, you see the error of your ways, and you got the stomach to pony up and do it again. It's a slap in the face. People that say that to me I won't ever disrespect Dr. Claude Anderson. Great respect for him, but I do have different opinions on things. So part of fixing our issue is to create a class of consumers that make more money. But we're pushing education, but we're pushing social science education. We push low money earning education. So even if you can pull consumers, they don't have the additional discretionary income to be able to truly support us in a way that we want to be supported. So if that's the case, if I just gave you that aha moment, who does? Who has the income to support a massive growth? And who should I be marketing products and stuff to? The number one or the highest paid community in the United States is not white people. Despite how people feel about it, they're the majority and they make most of the political decisions, but Asians have a higher household income than white people. So I need to be making products that Asians and white people consume. So I look at somebody like for instance, I look at Master P that has opportunity and all that kind of stuff, and he goes on his platform and comes up with, whatever black version of potato chips and whatever black version of cereal that he's doing. Why would you not? This is what I'm saying. If that's the case, even the Latin or the Hispanic community is bigger than the black community now. So if you do want to find your niche, why would you not let some Spanish person come up and name it La Cheerios or something like that? Like, my thing is why is it that we have to be like, look at me, nigga, look at me, look at me, look at me, nigga. So when you look at all the rich black billionaires, most of them, you don't even know them. They could walk by you and you wouldn't even know it, and their product or what people are consuming has nothing to do with being the first black nigga that did something, the first black person on the block. It has nothing to do with that. That's not their marketing scheme. They don't talk about it. They don't push that agenda. They make a product that the majority of Americans want to consume based on the product's face value. So that's a capitalist. A consumer or a participant wants to write a story or wants you to be, I want you to be in Black Wall Street and be the first black. Well, they were in Black Wall Street because they had to be. And white people wouldn't necessarily buy their products then. Now, you don't have to be the face of your product, and America is consumers and they don't care. What's your product? Super Soaker. How many white kids that buy Super Soakers every day know that a black man invented Super Soaker? How many of them think about it? They don't even think about it. They just see it's a great, cool product, and I want that big Super Soaker that, does the rapid fire. That's all it's the mentality.
So
we self-sabotage.
So do you think that the buy black kind of thing that just went on, or I don't know if it's still popping, but I get all asked that, is this black owned, is that black owned? Do you think that that trend is a good thing, or is that problematic because it's going to pigeonhole you into that sort of like, I'm a black business selling to black customers?
So, oh man, this is hard. It's not necessarily hard for me to talk about. I think from the perspective of a capitalist, it's a scheme to get into because it's a niche market, okay? So if I'm scheming and I'm like, oh man, I want to make this platform and all black people can put their products on there, and then they go market and they gonna send them to my platform. Great. That's a decent little, opportunity. But if I'm the toothbrush maker, no, I don't want my product being the black, we buy black. And I don't even want to say that. let me stop because I don't want to put any disparaging words on the We Buy Black. Because as a business model, I think it's a good business model. But I'm saying as the product line that's going on there, I don't necessarily want my product to be labeled a Black product. I want my product to be consumed by the majority of Americans. And then once I get my money, then I can provide social equity. Feel what I'm saying? We want to provide social equity when we scraping by, like the 3 pig by the hair of my chinny chin chin. We want to provide social equity then.
You prioritizing things incorrectly. You gotta get the bag first before you start doing charity work.
Get the bag before the charity work. And while you're getting the bag, guess what you're gonna be able to do? Hire Black. So every position may not be Black. You might hire a Black person, a Hispanic, an Asian, a white person, but then you double back another Black person. So now it's 2 Black people and 1 to each. Then and then you might hire another white chick, and then you might go back hire another Black person. It's just how this idea that Black people are this monolith, and that we're gonna just all get together and start supporting a product. We can't even provide that product to all Black people. How do we distribute that? How do you get, let's say tomorrow that what is it, about 20 million Black adults, maybe 15 million of them have jobs. So let's say that all 15 million Black folks spread out across the United States. We're talking Washington State, North Dakota, New York, Vermont. All of them was like, we're buying a Black product today. How are we gonna produce it and ship it out and keep people happy? So get the bag and then do your social equity work.
So we should go on and get ready to wrap it up. But I think that what I hear from you is that like the mindset, we've been conditioned, maybe because of the role that we played primarily, in this country. There's a big history of our ancestors being enslaved. And, I thought it's interesting when I was reading, like, we have this holiday now called Juneteenth. I mean, it's not now, but it's national now. And it's based on this proclamation. And in the proclamation, the general who told these enslaved people that they were now free, he said that you are now employees, and the slave master, you are the employers. And so I'm like, that's not freedom. This guy just told you what you're going to be doing. You know what I'm saying? If freedom means you can go about your damn business, you ain't got, I'm out of here, or
yeah.
No, he said, the slave master, you ain't the master no more. You an employer. And slave, You're not a slave no more. You're an employee. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it seems like if that's our reference to this society is from that standpoint, that is not the side of the coin that's going to make the big bucks. That's not the guy. If this is capitalism, we've been typecast as the consumer, and if we're typecast as a consumer, excuse me, and like it doesn't behoove the capitalists to tell us something different, to educate us differently.
Right, but it doesn't behoove the consumer to take on the responsibility of being a capitalist, because that's the big thing that people don't talk about, is that someone has to risk their hard-earned money in order to provide you that product. And for every product that you consume, it's 10 products that didn't make it. Somebody lost. So that's capitalism. So you want to talk about Jay-Z, but you don't want to talk about the 10,000 other rap artists that didn't make it. They spent time, money, went to the studio, paid for demos and all that kind of stuff. You want to talk about it. And again, that's that victim, consumer, participant mentality, not the capitalists. You can't disregard whether they're white, whether they're black, whether they're Hispanic. You can't disregard the fact that everything that's in front of you when you walk into Walmart or any store, somebody risked their shirt in order to bring that product and then risk money to market it and sell it and compete it against other products that was like it, and they ended up winning. And because they won, even the products that didn't win, for some time, somebody had a job off the products that were gone. Blockbuster. I mean, just look at all this. How many people did Blockbuster hire? How many people were employed at Blockbuster at one time? So even though Blockbuster is viewed as its failure, it had a good, 15, 20-year run. People were able to retire, feed families, send people to school, buy groceries, pay for cars, all that stuff off of these failed businesses. So what are you saying to me? Like, what you're saying is that capitalism doesn't work, but generations of people have lived and died off of the back of capitalism. And more non-capitalists have benefited from capitalism than capitalists have. So whether you work at a college institution, somebody's generating revenue in order for the government to send money there to pay you. Somebody's generating revenue in order to send their kid to college there. Somebody, like, it's not, you're telling me capitalism don't work, but you're surviving in America well. How? Oh, because I went and got an education. So somebody is generating revenue. Somebody risked their money and started generating revenue, and then they generated enough excess revenue that they could pay you. So don't spit in the face of the person that took the risk because you feel like Jeff Bezos should give more back. Nah, you should give more to capitalism. How about you risk your money and generate something? How about you not get no sleep? How about you spend time away from your family? How about you get divorced? How about you have your kids tell you in 15 years that you was never there for me? You know, all the stuff that capitalists go through. You know, that I spent 10 years and wasn't able to take a vacation. You know, that I wanted to buy a brand new G-Wagon, but instead, you know, I put the money into my workers' retirement fund because I just didn't feel right taking the money and them possibly not being able to have, you know, I mean, just all the stuff that capitalists do. And you want to be a disrespectful ass victim and talk about capitalism doesn't work when people are actually sacrificing what they are, because the majority of it, 48% of the businesses in the United States are 50 employees or less. Them companies are scraping by. Them companies are a couple of bad months away from not existing anymore. And somebody is making that happen. Somebody is putting in money. Somebody's going in front of investors and bankers and all that kind of stuff and pulling in gap money and not buying a new house when they could afford it, because the owner at some point can just be like, fuck it, I'm gonna take my couple million and I'm dipping. I'm retiring for the rest of my life. I'm gonna move to Colombia, Dominican Republic, South Africa, somewhere where my money's 40 to 1 and I'm good the rest of my life. But they're not doing it. So you were totally disrespecting capitalists and capitalism, because those are the people that are putting a roof over your head. You going to work is not putting a roof over your head, because you could go do what you're doing, and if there's no revenue being generated, if the product isn't a good product, you can't put a roof over your head no more. You're just labor. So if you want to view something differently, stop thinking so highly of yourself. You're just labor. You know, that don't sound good to the person that's labor, does it? But you want to be that disrespectful to the capitalist, to the person that invested, the angel investor and all that. You don't care about how disrespectful you are to them, but you don't want to be disrespected as, oh, you're just insignificant, you're just labor. You're just the bad guy that costs us more money.
I think that there's a lot, because when you the thing that caught my ear, like I said, when they keep saying black capitalists, that to me is an indication that, you know, they're adding on issues that have nothing to do with it, right? So I think capitalism is sort of a catchphrase for all things exploitative, colonialism, racism. Like, there's people that say, capitalism was started with slaves, things like of that nature. And so, for African Americans who have a sort of a relationship with America in general, I think capitalism is just seen like, they enslaved us because of capitalism, kind of thing. So a lot of negative attributes are just associated with the idea of capitalism, and white supremacy is one of them. So
real quick,
yeah,
I just looked up how many black employees Jay-Z has, and this isn't official. But this link right here is saying that Jay-Z employs between 175 and 200 black people, depending on the time of year. That 175 to 200 black people either generate temporary income or permanent income because of JD's capitalist endeavors, because of his capitalist scheme. Fuck out of here, man. With that black capitalism don't work. I'm quite sure if I pulled up Oprah Winfrey, it'd be a lot more than that. I'm quite sure if I pulled up these other black billionaires that...
I remember one time when I was much younger, I worked in the movie sets, and the first movie I worked on was a Spike Lee movie, Summer of Sam, and I was amazed at all the black people that was part of the production, like everybody. I was like, damn, what the hell is going on here? And it was just like, that's how Spike Lee got down. Like, his whole crew was a bunch of black people.
But I would venture to say that most black entrepreneurs are that way, except for where they can't find the black talent, or except for where they're giving the better talented person the opportunity. Most black people that are in business that's halfway successful are bringing on their people. So you just talking to people that want a handout. They got cups for hands. Jay-Z, give me some, Jay-Z.
Yeah.
Jay-Z don't owe nobody nothing. The fact that he generates revenue and pays his taxes, he's doing his debt to society. So he pays millions of dollars in taxes, even though it ain't here. I know he ain't paying what he's supposed to pay, but he paid $1 million in taxes, and them taxes pay for roads so your ass can get to work. Them taxes pay for public school so your ass can send your kid to public school and not have to pay. His money pays for, the FAA, the Department of Transportation, so you can have safe air travel back and forth to where you're going. So this idea that he's supposed to take additional money and give it to the black community is just bullshit. That's victim mentality.
But isn't that what billionaires and people do when they start doing philanthropy, like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation? They start using their money to further their own interests, and so but
it's not about furthering their own interests. They're doing it to mitigate their taxes. So it's like, do I give it to the government, or would I rather give it to?
Well, that's what rich people do. They take their money and say, I'm gonna take care of this social service so that you don't have to. So could it be blameworthy that all of these black millionaires and billionaires, there's only a handful of them, but multimillionaires aren't just opening up community projects? Like, you would think that the rich millionaires have their foundations that are addressing issues within their community. How come the Magic Johnson is just opening up movie theaters? How come there's not a Magic Johnson version of the Boys Club basketball or something in store?
I guarantee you what ends up happening, what rich people do is they do a estimate of earnings. And so based off of that estimate of earnings, they may do it for the next 5 years. So they say, okay, I estimate that I'm going to make, $100 million a year over the next 5 years. So my tax liability is going to end up being, once I finagle these taxes, I'm still going to owe, $15 million. So each year, I'm gonna put 15 million in the fund. First come, first serve. That's how most rich people do. They ain't got time to find out about Bean Pie Chronicles, women's shelter. It's first come, first serve. It's your job to find out when that money's getting released. You see what I'm saying? Victim mentality. Most black people don't even know that's how rich people work.
But under the circumstances that black people are in a certain particular circumstance here in America, and so why you think that is? Why shouldn't black people expect the well off in their community to, like Bill and Melinda Gates are very particular about some of the things that their foundation does. You know, why shouldn't the Carter Foundation be very particular about where it wants to impact black, or benefit black community?
Well, I'm sure that they do have some benefit to black communities, but at the same time, it's proportional too, because white kids need services too. See what I'm saying? We want to make America impossible. We want to create an impossible life for rich people just because they're financially successful. So if Jay-Z, if his tax liability is $15 million per year, and he's like, okay, I want to put that into my foundation, first come, first serve, but make sure at least $5 million goes towards black businesses. So I'm saying proportionally based on that 15 mil, he giving a third of it to 12% of the population. See, we don't look at it that way. We don't look at it that, but this other 10 million is gonna buy me more social equity on my level so that I can put in calls and get McNeil out of jail, or I can rub elbows with other billionaires and other politicians that are helping make decisions and stuff like that, because you know what, they got a fund too. Make sure Rep, Idris gets that $250,000, donation to his daughter's fund. Make sure that stuff, because we don't think on the level of a capitalist as a group, we don't think that 10 million that's not coming to the black community is what's making the 175 million or the 175 200 employees eat, and it's making me to make more money. And so now I can go from 15 million to 20 million, and now black folks are getting 7.5 million instead of. We don't think on those levels. We just think like, you ain't putting it in my pocket, so you failing. You ain't shit. That's how we think. We don't think, we can't even fathom the dance that a billionaire has to do. You know what I'm saying? And the perfect example is Kanye. 1.6 billion one day, the next day 400 million. So he didn't necessarily play the dance, or maybe he did play the dance the way that he wanted to dance. But I'm just saying, when you're playing in them circles, you don't know what that's like me walking into somebody's job being like, you ain't doing this shit right. You ain't, and I don't know the rules. You know what I'm saying? I know people say stuff to me. I'm barely on the $1 million level. Feel what I'm saying? Like, not in my pocket, but I'm saying I'm barely on that $1 million level, couple mil, $2-3 million level doing business, and people say stuff to me, and I just look at them like, you have no fucking idea what you're talking about. Like, none. Like, that does not work. It's not even close to working. That theory that you heard on the YouTube TikTok video, that don't happen in the real world. It don't work like that. So, and you and I were just involved in a couple of conversations that you had privy to on the back end that you were hearing, and and you see how people have these big ideas, and it's like, nah, bro, it don't work that way. Right. So who knows what the lifestyle of a billionaire and their philanthropic abilities are, and once once you, for example, right now, Jay-Z is dodging getting a lawsuit because his cannabis company is getting sued. Feel what I'm saying? So the lady that's suing his cannabis company and throwing up these allegations that his cannabis company is selling weed across state lines. So it's so much involved on the level of a billionaire's just regular lifestyle, but doing business and being philanthropic and all that kind of stuff. Man, look, if Jay-Z never gave another dime of his philanthropic abilities to black people, he didn't give black people any other charity. The fact that he hires every year 175 to 200 black people should shut all black people up. Because when you pull that matrix out and he directly impacts 175 people, how many kids, how many elderly, how many retirement funds, all that kind of stuff, when it layers out, this 175 people is supporting, 500-600 black folks. So shut up, man. Shut up. I don't want to hear it. Leave them alone. Now, if you got somebody, I'm just using Clarence Thomas as an example, but I think he's very misunderstood. But just the image of Clarence Thomas. If you think about Clarence Thomas and he ain't hiring nobody black, he ain't with nobody black, he ain't in no black rooms, he ain't creating no black jobs, that's different. That's different than, Oprah. I don't really care for Oprah, but she hired a whole lot of black people. I don't really care for Tyler Perry. He hired a whole lot of black people. Byron Allen. He hired a whole lot of black people. So, just these people have no idea, and we're not going to make it. We're not going to decrease the wealth gap. I don't think we'll ever be even unless we start to change now. I think in order for us to be equal or even in this society, it's going to take us 200 years and a whole lot of deprogramming. But can we squeeze that? Can we lower the wealth gap? I think over the next 30, 40, 50 years, we could if we just changed our mentality and stop riding with the Democratic Party so much. We don't have no friends in the world or in America. We don't have no friends in Africa. We don't have no friends in Central America, South America. We don't have no friends in America. What we do have, if we economically come together and make better decisions, is we have buying power. And we have selling power. You got to buy my vote. Or if you want my vote, it's going to cost this. I need it in writing now, before the vote. None of that rhetoric and promises. I need it now in writing. Change this now, and I'll deliver you 5 million votes on election day. That's the way we got to play ball. I don't care whose side. I don't care who's going to deliver. We need a youth center in every city in a black neighborhood that's over 15 million population. 15,000 population. We need a youth center bill. Figure it out. You can't do that, we ain't guaranteeing no votes. So fuck y'all. We'll sit home.
And I think that's the point that I get from Claude Anderson and both Tone and Claude Anderson. Their critiques are not so much about capitalism per se, as much as it's about black people and how we fail to properly play this game. Listen, man. This is what the people need to hear, I believe, because, like I said, that video that I was responding to, and just the conversations that I'm having with people, it just seems like it's a prevalent mindset among our people, and they're using this data, and they're using just this same sentiment and just compounding. And I listened to it for 10 minutes. I sent it to you. You said we had the same response. It's like, this guy's not giving an accurate critique because his disposition is wrong. He's like putting things where they don't belong. And so you can't have a proper critique if you're counting employees as capitalists and saying capitalism ain't working. Like the premise is wrong. So
Yeah, you're it's straw man argumentation. So you're
right,
building up the straw man and then getting people to argue your
right,
logical fallacy.
right,
So that's why I didn't even finish watching it. You know, I watched 10 minutes just to make sure I was
right,
understanding it. But after that, it's like his whole argument was deconstructed. It was like, there's nothing. Here you go. There's a straw man logical fallacy. This is one thing. That's a whole nother thing. Someone that lives in America isn't a capitalist. You ain't a capitalist until you have a risk reward scenario.
mm,
When you do that, when you risk your money, then you're a cap. When you risk your money or someone else's money on a scheme that you come up with, then you're a capitalist. Until then, you're just a participant in someone else's scheme, or you're a consumer.
there you go. And we'll wrap it up with that.
All right,
Inshallah. Thank you for giving me time to have this conversation, and much appreciated. Until next time, inshallah.
sound like.
I'm sorry.